The question is that the motion be agreed to.
Mr.
I
Speaker.
recognise the honourable member Iain-Lees Galloway.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Let me say at the outset that we in the Labour Party seek to be a constructive opposition and to work with the government where we can on legislation, so we will support this legislation going to Select Committee. Having said that, we concur with the view of the AA that the bill as it is worded currently is too broad, and we would also want to see some amendment to those final words in the bill for any reason, and we would need to see amendment to that and also consideration of the Attorney-General's report before we could support it any further. But we do look forward to the debate and the consideration at Select Committee. Clearly, it does seem inadequate if someone is found to be, or where the evidential breath test finds or suggests that they are over the drink driving limit, that there appears to be a mechanism by which a small number of people may be able to avoid prosecution. It is important to reinforce, sir, I think, that we are dealing with probably a very small number of people. In fact, I believe the member in charge of the bill cannot tell us exactly how many people might be captured by this legislation. And therefore we wonder whether this really is a significant issue that is so desperately in need of attention. In fact, the member suggested that there are many ways to avoid prosecution for a charge of drinking in excess of the limit. And if that were the case, then surely this should be a government bill that addressed all of those issues. So we wonder on this side just how significant the problem is. And I have to look at some of the language that Mr Simpson has used around this issue. He cited the case of a defendant who was apparently Hep C positive. I don't know what that has to do with anything. I don't know why Mr Simpson felt the need to bring that fact into the debate at all. But that person was also an intravenous drug user. And I read in the newspaper Mr Simpson referring to this as an issue which was pretty much specifically designed to capture people who are intravenous drug users. In fact, he hasn't offered any other reason why it might be difficult to take blood from someone. There are a range of reasons why it may be difficult to take blood from somebody. One is being overweight. Another is stress, and at a time of stress, the body actually withdraws the blood from the limbs, the arms, the legs, back towards the vital organs in the brain. It's the fight or flight response. It's quite a normal thing to happen, and indeed, if someone were found to be driving over the limit, it's probably fair to say that that would be a stressful situation, and that fight or flight mechanism may kick in, and it may be difficult to draw blood from those people. But these situations haven't come up in Mr Simpson's discussion at all. He has focused this solely on a group of people that I suspect he deems to be less worthy of a reasonable hearing before the law. Because they are intravenous drug users, he has decided that they are somehow less worthy before the law. So you have to wonder exactly what it is that is driving Mr Simpson here, or why he has used that language. Maybe he is trying to convince the good national voting people out there that this won't affect them somehow, because this is directed at a very narrow group of people and not at them. I don't know. Mr Simpson might be able to enlighten us to why he has used the particular language that he has, but that's up to him. Let's just suffice to say there is a number of reasons why it might be impossible to draw blood. I do want to say, though, that we must be mindful of the Attorney-General's report, and Mr Simpson referred to the Attorney-General's officials report. I think that is unfair on the Attorney-General. The Attorney-General's signature is on this. Now, I know John Banks has set a new standard for signing documents and whether or not you're supposed to have read them before you sign them, but I take the Attorney-General's signature on there as this being something that he has not only read, but something that he supports. So this is the Attorney-General's report, and we do have to be mindful of it. In fact, if the Attorney-General were to offer his thoughts in this debate, that would be welcome on this side of the House. But we do need to be mindful of what the Attorney-General said. And I find it ironic, Mr. Speaker, that this bill is being promoted by a National Party member, it is being supported by the National Party, and it will get, I'm sure, the support of the governing parties tonight, as well as some of the opposition parties, when it will have such a small impact on the road toll and the harm caused by drink driving. When in the same breath, those parties will refuse to support lowering the drink drive limit from 0.08 to 0.05, a measure that we know is evidence-based and will have a significant impact on the harm on the roads caused by alcohol, which the Ministry of Transport has provided evidence to the Minister of Transport will reduce the number of people killed on our roads every year by up to 30. Up to 30 lives can be saved every year if the government would just accept the advice of its own officials, would follow public opinion. 85% of New Zealanders support lowering the drink drive limit from 0.08 to 0.05, which international evidence tells us not only has an impact on the people who drive with a blood alcohol limit of between 0.05 and 0.08, but also significantly reduces the number of people who are heavily intoxicated, who get behind the wheel, drive their vehicle, cause accidents and kill people. I heard the word how from the far side. The evidence is actually quite clear and quite simple. It is quite simple. A limit of 0.05 requires people to make a decision about whether or not they get behind the wheel much earlier in the process of consuming alcohol. Because once they get over 0.05 but is below 0.08, they lose the capacity to make a sensible decision about whether or not they should get behind the wheel. It's as simple as that. The evidence supports it. The evidence that the Minister was given supports it. Public opinion supports it. It is what people want. It is the right thing to do. It will save lives, and yet this government will not do it. And what they are doing instead is a piecemeal piece of legislation like this that is fine in of itself, but is meaningless in the grand scheme of trying to reduce the road toll and trying to reduce the harm caused by alcohol and the harm caused by drink driving. And is in fact, from the language used by Mr Simpson, being used to isolate some members of our community and further divide our community, which we know this National Party is so very, very good at doing. That's right. So whilst we appreciate that there is probably some positive motivation behind what Mr Simpson is trying to do, and whilst we appreciate that there is an inadequacy in the law, which we will work with the government to tidy up, we think there are much larger issues that need to be addressed and could be being addressed by this government if they were actually prepared to do the right thing and address the harm caused by alcohol on our roads with a piece of legislation that would actually make some difference.
I call the honourable member Simon Bridges.
Mr Speaker.